मैं समय हूँ।
I am
मेरा
time
जन्म-
immortal. I was born along with the universe. I have existed since the beginning of time. I am the past, the present, and the future. I was, I am, and I will be. In the battle for domination of this planet, many hopefuls have struggled, even dinosaurs, though they are but a story, like the remaining species. The real battle began with us humans, and my Bharat has seen it all. The conflict, the plunder, the victory, and the history. Civilizations were born and declined. Dynasties rose and failed. The Greeks, the Mongols, the Mughals, and the Europeans. I have witnessed it all, but I was neutral. Not so naive and not so unaware, but neutral. Because I am time personified. A soul, the soul of Bharat. People coveted me, but they did not change with me. I did. I played, grew up, lived, and died along the banks of Sarasvati. I flourished on the banks of Ganga. My immortal soul witnessed millennia unfolding in front of me, and I have seen my motherland changing and accommodating for her people. But I must be the only constant in all the changes. I am to be omniscient. And today, on behalf of Kirti, Seema, and Priyanka, I will tell you the story of Bharat. Come, join me to get a very short glimpse of ancient Bharat. To clarify, the history of my nation is not a disjointed account of folktales, but rather a continuously embroidered fine tapestry, carefully recorded by an academic, cultured, and rich civilization since the Holocene period. We, proud Indians, refer to our history as Itihasa, a term derived from Ithi, Asa, meaning thus verily happened. Human civilization has existed in the Indian subcontinent for more than 100,000 years. The cataclysmic eruption of the Toba volcano in Sumatra, approximately 75,000 years ago, left Bharat devastated, with its human, plant, and animal populations drastically reduced. Only a handful of survivors, nestled in the mountainous regions, managed to endure. As the land began to heal with time, northwestern and northern India became habitable. These survivors migrated, thrived, and the Saptas in the region, nourished by the Sarasvati River, became the cradle of the Vedic civilization, the first acknowledged great civilization of the region. To put things in perspective, archaeological findings of early agriculture along the banks of Lahiradiwa Lake in eastern Uttar Pradesh have been carbon dated to a remarkable range from 13,000 BCE to 7,300 BCE. Ancient civilization indeed. Concurrently, the Kashmir Valley, once a glacial lake known as Satisar during the early, pre-Vedic period, began to experience incessant rainfall as a side effect of an asteroid impact around 11,200 BCE. The force of water from the swollen lake opened the Varahamala, or Baramulla, Pass, allowing the waters to flow out of Kashmir Valley and flooding the Medra, Sindh, and Gujarat regions during the reign of Vaivasvata Manu. This flooding created a fertile plain and a rich atmosphere, paving the way for migration and civilization. It is pertinent to note here that the Sarasvati River, which originated near Badrinath, flowed initially to Prathudika or Pahova in Haryana, before taking a southwestern course through Hisar, Sambar Lake, Pushkar, and Jodhpur, eventually reaching the Great Rann of Kutch, was the life-giver, or the center of the pre-Vedic era civilization. That is how ancient the civilization
Unfortunately,
of Bharat is. The entire Indus-Sarasvati civilization declined around 1900 BCE, gradually disappearing along with the end of the Bronze Age, giving way to the Iron Age around 1500 BCE. Thus began the Vedic civilization. the most important and influential era in the history of Bharat. Sanskrit was their official language. They commuted in wheels and horse-driven chariots. In some of their sagas like Ramayana and Mahabharata, there are mentions of flying machines called pushkar. But that's up to discussion. They had a progressive civil system, with a social structure broadly consisting of the Brahmins, priests, the Kshatriyas, warriors, the Vaishyas, merchants and farmers, and the Shudras, laborers. People sent their kids to live and study in their teachers' houses from the age of 8, only to return to their parents' homes on completion of their studies in their teenage years. This was known as the Gurukul system of education. They had a very sophisticated system of learning through the texts of the Vedas and the Puranas. They even developed the science to perform advanced surgery like ear transplantation. Can you believe that? Ear surgery, more than 2,000 years ago. Wow! Their education system was based on the 4 Vedas, which include hymns, rituals, and philosophical concepts. The Rig Veda, the oldest Veda, focusing on hymns dedicated to various deities. The Samaveda, a collection of melodies used in rituals. The Yajur Veda contains sacrificial formulas. The Atharva Veda includes spells and magical charms. And with Vedic period began the golden age of India, with many empires rising and falling and most of it well documented, and I am sure most of you learned people are eminently aware of it. So I will speed along and tell you just the highlights, okay? The Vedic period was followed by the rise and fall of many dynasties like the Maurya dynasty, 300 BC to 184 BC, the Kushan dynasty, 40 to 176 AD, the Gupta dynasty, 320 to 550 AD, the Vardhana or Pushyabhuti dynasty, 560 to 647 AD, the Ghazni dynasty, 962 to 1116 AD, the Slave dynasty, 1206 to 1290 AD, the Khilji dynasty, 1290 to 1320 AD, the Tughlaq dynasty, 1320 to 1414 AD, the Lodhi dynasty, 1451 to 1526 AD, the Mughal dynasty, 1526 to 1857, the Suri dynasty, 1540 to 1555 AD, the Marathas, 1649 to 1818 AD, the Peshwas, 1708 to 1818, the Chalukyas, 543 to 1156, the Chola dynasty, circa 301 BC to 1279 AD, the Bahmani Muslim kingdom, 1346 to 1526 AD, and the Vijayanagar Empire, 1336 to 1565 AD, are among few of the better known. One of the most important kingdoms which has influenced and continues to influence the strategic culture of Bharat even today is the Magadha Empire. Referred to as the mightiest kingdom in the country, stronger even than the Kurus, of whom the epic is all about. Magadha was ruled by the king Bimbisara of the Haryanka dynasty and controlled the entire eastern part of the country through alliances with smaller vassal states. His son, Ajatashatru, annexed several different neighboring states, including Kosala. This great empire features prominently in epics like the Mahabharata and in the hearts of the Indian population. Also, if we talk about Magadha, we have to talk about the Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama, as he was called then, was the heir prince or crown prince of the neighboring state of Magadha, the Kapila Vastu. His father, Shuddhodhan, the head of Kapil Vastu of Shakya dynasty, was himself a believer of Shramanic practices, the extreme asceticism and soul concentration meditation. So, though he and his wife Maya tried all their reasonings, Siddhartha Gautama still denounced his grihastashram, that is his family life, and left to seek enlightenment. He later found patronage with the king Bimbisara of Magadha. And of course, the rest is history. But to continue the thread of the Magadha Empire, let us go back to Ajatashatru. Like all the good rules end, the rule of Ajatashatru ended too, due to various reasons, the least of which was loving a Latchavi dancer who followed Buddha. So, love transformed him, and he built stupas. That, my friends, was an interesting love story that transcended caste and creed. But life, in Bharat, went on, and soon the love story became a tiny part of history. The battle continued though. And, about 50 years after the death of Ajatashatru, Mahapadma Nanda killed the last king of the short-lived Shishanaga dynasty that had risen from a palace strife. But, like I said, though the love story was a tiny detail of the history, the atrocities committed by the corrupt Nanda king were mentioned by the Chinese pilgrim traveler Huan Xing 600 years after his death. That's what they mean when they say that the truth will prevail, right? To continue, after Alexander left for Greece, the departure created a power vacuum in western India. Chandragupta Maurya stepped into this vacuum, subjugated these kingdoms, and then entered Pataliputra and killed the Nanda king. Chandragupta Maurya had the support of the populace and the palace. The polymath Chanakya, who is also known as Quilya or Vagupta, who authored the ancient Indian political treatise, the Arthashastra, served as his chief advisor. Thus, the mighty Magadha kingdom had given way to a kingdom even more powerful, the Mauryan Empire. The Mauryan Empire was a powerful state centered at Pataliputra, modern-day Patna, near the junction of the Son and Ganga rivers. The Mauryan Empire encompassed most of the Indian subcontinent. Mauryan Empire reached its peak under Ashoka the Great, the mighty king of the dynasty that fought his wars as intensely as he worshipped Buddha. Ashoka reigned around 273 to 232 BCE. He controlled major urban centers and arteries of the Indian subcontinent, except for the deep south. After he surrendered to Buddhism, his edicts, inscribed on stone pillars, provide valuable insights into his reign and constitute some of the oldest deciphered original texts in India. After Ashoka's death, Mauryan Empire was overruled by the Shunga dynasty. The period from there on is called the Golden Age of India. The Gupta period that followed the Mauryans saw unprecedented progress in art, literature, science, and culture. This was the period when Aryabhata propounded the theory that the Earth revolves around the Sun, centuries before Copernicus. An even more amazing fact is that the concept of zero and decimal system was developed in the Gupta period. These mathematical advances revolutionized the field and became the foundational principles for the development of mathematics and science globally. Moreover, the Gupta period saw the creation of classical Sanskrit literature, with luminaries like Kalidasa penning his timeless work. The art and architecture of this period, like Ajanta and Ellora caves, still leave us in awe of their architectural genius. These periods, from the robust governance of Mauryans to the science and art of the Gupta period, leaves an indelible mark on the course of world history. But beyond the art and science studies, the heart of India beats in its spiritual and philosophical insights that illuminated minds for centuries and continue to do so to date. India is the crucible of the philosophy and spiritual search for the soul. A little-known fact is that the principles of non-violence and civil disobedience are so essential to India's fight for freedom, is greatly influenced by its philosophical root of non-interference and respect for territorial integrity. This country that was rich in resources, heritage, knowledge, and traditions went through a gamut of rise and fall due to others' creed, cruelty, and ignorance. History still continued its relentless stride into the annals of time, but, like I promised you, We will not get into a full spectrum history viewing, but just a few salient points to emphasize the rich heritage that Bharat historically enjoys. To cut a long story short, India became independent in 1947 and has since then progressed steadily towards building a strong, prosperous, and vibrant modern nation with emphasis on strategic autonomy and self-reliance.
As a good omen.